This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Authenticity, do things originally. You got your own style, let everybody see. You gotta be unique, take a chance and speak your mind, 'cause it only takes one step to your heart. It only takes one step to your heart. It only takes one step to your heart, and then you'll be fine, and you'll know who you are.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Gardner. Welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. I want to send everybody over to abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on our network. Please go check that out. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just look for Little Mexican, LILMESICAN. You can find information on me, my guests, things that I've done, things I like, and even some things I don't like. Just come and challenge me on that. Coming soon, the Little Mexican Productions webpage. We're working on that. There's a little stuff in there. There'll be more. Go check it out. Tell me what you think. But for now, you can find all of the stuff that we're working on here at the production company at Little Mexican Productions on Facebook. And you can find pictures and things that we're working on. Just our web series, some of the vlogs we're working on, all kinds of information. Just go check it out. This week, I'm excited. This is another episode of the series we're working on for positive-minded people. Did I get that right?
That's correct, yes.
Hey, Jaime, Aplin, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And from the accent, people might recognize it. Yes, she's from Kentucky. Actually, you are in Australia.
Yes, that's correct. I live in South Australia, in Adelaide, so one of the capital cities of Australia. So at the moment, we're just literally stepped into spring, and this is probably be about the second day in the whole of September that we've actually woken up with it not being cold. So I've actually got short sleeves on today, so I'm pretty proud about that. So so I've born and bred in Adelaide. I have to call Australia home, absolutely. So.
That's awesome. I find it odd when I do overseas podcasts because the time change, like you were mentioning in the pre-interview, it's already Monday morning for you.
It absolutely is, yes. So I've just dropped the kids off to school, so it's just gone 9:30 here this morning. So, it's interesting. When I was over in LA, about 4 weeks ago, and, every time I'd kind of go to call home, you know, it just wasn't the right time. So it's an interesting time delay. And, thank you very much for working with me with that. So,
no, thank you. Because it's 5:00 here. And I was surprised because I got a message from you at 5:00 this morning. And I was like, wow, she's up early. And then I remembered, oh yeah. she's in Australia.
Yes.
Anyway, well, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And thank you for making time this morning to be with me. So, before we get into the book, and at this point, folks have heard about the book, let's start with you. How do you put it together?
How do I put it together? I look after myself. I became a mum. Well, my two girls, I've got them, they're 6 and 5. And for most part of being a mum, I really put myself on the back burner. And that's very much about, you know, part of my journey and my story. But essentially the way that I put it together is looking after myself. I put everyone else forward and in front of me for a long time there, and it got me into a whole world of pain and suffering. So over the last 18 months, I've really just taken the time to take care of myself first, because as soon as I take care of myself first, everyone else around me benefits from that. So that's absolutely how I put it together.
I've always believed that when, especially moms, I'll say, this is based on my experience. Before anybody goes, what do you got against women? Nothing against women, but based on my experience, I come from a Latin background, Catholic, very conservative, and usually the women are the home keepers. Even if they work, they take care of the house, they take care of the kids, they take care of the husband, they take care of everything. And I believe from watching my mom, which was my first reference to this, and then watching my sisters, that this is something that they learned from her. Even though they didn't like it and they criticized her for it, they still did it. Is that similar to your story?
Absolutely. It's really interesting. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. My dad had his business while we were younger, and mum was just always there, pick up, drop off, homework projects, all those kind of things. And, prior to me having children, I was really a career-orientated woman. And so when I had the kids, I just had this feeling that I had to be a stay-at-home mum. And really what it was because I knew that my mum had always been there. And I think within myself somewhere I was like, well, I need to do the same thing. So that was how I saw being a mum was, kind of giving up my life for my kids. But like I said, it really just didn't work out for me because I was missing something. I was missing a part of myself. By not still having career whilst having children. So I absolutely resonate with that. I kind of took on a belief of somebody else and what they did, thinking that was the right thing for me. So.
Right. That always reminds me, I don't know if you heard the story of the daughter and the ham.
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. So, I think I've told this on the show. The daughter goes to the mom and says, Mom, I'm going to make a ham. But I want to know why you cut the ends of the ham. And the mom's like, well, I don't know, dear. Like, your grandmother always did it that way. So they both get in the car and drive over to grandma's and ask grandma. It's like, Grandma, what's the secret? Why do you have to cut the ends of the ham? And so grandma's like, well, you don't have to. It's just that my ham won't fit in my pan. So I have to cut it. And they're like, oh, okay. So that's not really you don't have to do that.
Yeah. No, definitely. You just think that's, just what you have to do. And I didn't really think twice about it. We set ourselves up financially in order to be able to do that. There was just this underlying thing that I knew that that's just what I had to do. But like I said, we had our girls really close together as well. So they're, only 13 months apart. So very, very close. So there was, a long period of time where I was at home with them and I was just yearning for something else outside of myself that, the kids couldn't fulfill. But I kind of felt, I resented them to a point because they weren't giving me everything I needed. But really what it was me resenting myself for not really doing what I felt I really should have done. So yeah, it's really interesting.
When you get married, and I'm not a female, so I wouldn't. But when a female gets married and you're talking to your husband, we're gonna have kids, blah blah. I guess I'm going to the beginning of the story. Did you talk about that? Was that something in your conversation? Like, hey, when we get married, you're going to stay home? Or was it something that just kind of happened when you had your child? Like all of a sudden you're like, now I need to do this without. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, my husband and I have been together for a long time. We always wanted to have children. We'd been together for 9 years when we got married. Kids were always on the card, and it wasn't until I actually got really sick and I had endometriosis. And, they said to us, if you're going to have children, you want to have them, relatively soon because this disease kind of, makes you infertile to a degree. So then all of a sudden we were just like, it was about, 18 months after we got married, we're like, oh my God, okay, well, are we going to have kids now? So, and then we kind of came against a couple of other things where we potentially got told that we can't have any children. So, luckily we conceived, pretty much within the first month when we had our, first daughter, Ella. So really for us, kids were always on the card and it wasn't like we were together for, such a short space of time. But all of a sudden it was like, okay, got to fall pregnant, fell pregnant, had Ella. And then, so it was kind of like I said, that was, it happened so quickly, but we always, I'd always had the thing of, I'll start home. So it wasn't even like, we made the decision. It was just an underlying, I guess, knowing.
Right.
And then literally, we had Ella, she was 3 months old and we fell pregnant with Ada. So,
wow.
To even contemplate going back to work or doing anything like that really wasn't on the cards. So, it really happened quite quickly for us. So, and they say, even if you were to say, okay, we're going to start trying for kids and then, have kids, it's just like you're never really ready to have them. You don't know how it impact your life. So yeah, we certainly did, what we thought was the right thing to do, and I felt like was the right thing to do at the time. So
I'm so glad you said that because a lot of people, a lot of my couple friends who are young still, they're like, oh, it's not the right time. We're going to wait for the right time. Uh, Eventually our careers will slow down and we'll have the time. Uh, but hardly anybody ever says like, you can't plan it. You just got to go for it or not.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously at that time it was just fate. It was just obviously meant to be. And like I said, we were blessed to have, our first girl Ella, and then, to have another one so quickly, Ada. It was just a blessing, and there is never a right time. It's not like, and I remember at the time I just literally got a massive promotion in my career, and things were just, going along really well, and, had the, blessing of, getting pregnant. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a disillusion that you're ready and there's a perfect time where, all the planets in the universe all aligns and it's all magic. And you're like, okay, now's the time we're going to have this baby. So, yeah, and I think that's what it is. It kind of, no matter where you are in your life, when it comes up, like you just deal with it how you know at that time. So
yeah, for those of you out there, if you're waiting for Mary Poppins to come knock at your door and tell you that now is the time, keep waiting. It's not going to happen. So,
absolutely. Definitely agree.
So you decide to stay home. Where do all your goals and all your dreams go?
They just stop. I had the belief that I had to sacrifice myself because I was a mum now. Again, just this belief. It's not like that's what I got told. It was just something, within me that just went, I can't have kids and have it all. Like it was, like my focus and, you just automatically like, I've just got to do everything for my kids. What's best for my children? And at that time I was like, well, it's not, the best for my kids, for someone else to look after my kids. That was just, again, this belief. And it's really interesting because it's not like, my husband told me or my mum told me or anyone said, this is what you need to do. It's just what I did. So, for the person that I was prior to having kids, like I said, really career driven. I knew exactly where I wanted to go. And then having the kids, I was just like, none of that matters anymore. I literally just went like, I just gave it up.
I see this idea of like you have this big bouquet of balloons and it's beautiful and it's going to last forever. And then all of a sudden you just grab a pair of scissors and just cut the balloons off and let them fly.
Yeah.
And there's no way of grabbing them back. What was all for you?
What was all?
Yeah. You mentioned having it all. What was all? If you could define having it all, what is that?
Yeah, having it all would be, yes, to be a mum, and have that time and space with your children, to have an amazing, marriage, and then having time for me. I think it's the trio, it's having, fulfillment in all areas of your life, and whether it was just for me, it was just all my eggs were in one basket. It was just like my kids were in my world, and it was like everything like that. My husband and I have an, amazing marriage, and, we were such, good friends and, lovers and all those kind of things before we had the kids, and we still, kept that alive essentially, but again, it's never going to be the same. So I think in having it all is really just allowing yourself to live a balanced life where there's time for you, there's time for your marriage, there's time for your, for your kids. So yeah, that's what I see as it all.
So at what point, you have your second daughter and you're home and it's like, okay, at what point does it start feeling like there's an emptiness or there's this void?
Yeah, it's interesting because, it's not like just one day I woke up and I'd lost that connection. Like, I really enjoyed being a mum. I loved being at home with them. And I think for me, there was probably two big things that kind of, happened. One was that they both, because they're so close in age, they both became toddlers at the same time. And anyone that has children, knows how very dependent toddlers are on you. So I think when they were so, needing of my attention all the time and two of them at the same time, it became very overwhelming. And not long before my daughter's second birthday, my eldest daughter, Ella's second birthday, she was actually diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Oh.
So very much a lifelong, disability, and finding that out at that age, I think really, it surprised us. It completely came out of nowhere, and you start to think, well, how's it going to affect her future? And, how's her life going to look? Because as a mum, all you want, your kids to do is have a happy and healthy life. So at that point, I think that was also a big part of where I started to feel guilty. It's like, well, I carried her and, I gave birth to her, because cerebral palsy essentially is, it's like a stroke. So it's either while you're pregnant with your baby or when you give birth to your baby. There's a certain part of, the oxygen gets cut off, to your nervous system. And what it does is, it affects her right side. So she doesn't have, her muscles don't soften. Her muscles aren't loose. They're very tight. So essentially that happened either while I was carrying her or while I gave birth to her. So I think there was a part of me, that felt guilty, that it must have been something because of me, that created that. So I think that, the catalyst of, being at home with two toddlers and also having, a daughter with a disability, where obviously she needed lots of appointments and lots of special, treatment as such, that things started to really the wheels started to fall off the wagon. So
That's pretty interesting, because the story, I think for anybody listening, they can start off and they'll see your picture and they're like, oh my God, she's this pretty little mom from Australia. She's got everything put together. Great husband, 2 kids, doesn't have to go to work. How awesome for you. Boo-hoo. Yeah. Boo-hoo, Jaime.
Exactly.
But then the story starts taking shape. It's like, oh wow, this is not staying home was not something that you actually wanted. It's just something that you thought you had to do.
Absolutely.
For no other reason than to cut the ends off the ham. And just because somebody else did it. And then to see your, one of your children having, issues and you can't fix that.
Yeah.
Does at any point come to your brain or to your thoughts, like I'm home. Like, how can I not fix this? Like, this is why I'm home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably the biggest thing, because it wasn't like I was missing out on able to do those things for her. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and going, Jaime, like, you have a, amazing, marriage and, amazing family. There's so many, if you want to talk about a checklist, which I don't live by, but if you want to talk about a checklist of what you should have for a happy and fulfilling life, it would tick them all. Like I looking in, I had it all. And I think that's what made it even harder, was because I should have been grateful for that and I should have been happy with that. But there was just this part of me inside that just wasn't fulfilled, wasn't happy anymore. And I think it made it harder, because I was like, why aren't you feeling like this? You should be. And then you're just putting more and more expectations on yourself and thinking, well, you've got it all. Why are you so, unhappy?
How was that, or did it affect in any way your marriage?
Well, when I really hit my, depression and, started to go through anxiety, I'd never gone through that as a kid or as a teenager or as a young adult. The depression was just literally like this massive withdrawal. I started not feeling anything anymore. Everything was just like, what's going to happen today? So then the anxiety came up, and I remember clearly going to see the, psychologist, because I knew that just wasn't, pretty much what I just said to you, like everything should be good. Excuse me. Why am I not feeling happy? And I remember going to see the psychologist, and she's like, your life doesn't have to be like this. And I was like, yeah, but I'm a mum now, like again, it's not about me. And this is, I just felt like this is how life as a parent was. And, she's like, I think you've got, undiagnosed depression for such a long time. And, and when she told me that, I was like in shock. I was like, but I don't have depression. Like, my life's not that bad. And I think that was a huge change, or a turning point for me, where I actually got a lot worse. When someone said to me, oh, you've got depression, and anxiety, I was just like, no, I don't. Like, so then I kind of took on those characteristics, and I really, like, that's when things started to get really tough. So, for my marriage, when we went through the depression and the anxiety, my husband just wanted to help me get better. But for anyone that's gone through depression, anxiety, until you're ready, to help yourself or ready for change, it doesn't matter what anyone else does for you. And that was where our marriage just started to just start to diminish, because he wanted to help me. I didn't want to help myself. I was just stuck in this massive hole. So, that was where things got really tough for us. Because he wanted to do, as the loving husband he wanted to do everything he could to help me, but he just couldn't. It was my journey to have, and at that point I wasn't ready to help myself.
Yeah, and I can. One of the really, and we're going to start getting into the book in a minute, but one of the really interesting parts was, I'm not going to talk all about the book, so I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody. But Jaime knows what I'm talking about. There's a part where you are talking about being in a classroom or in a window, sitting by a window.
Yes.
And I remember my window moment.
Yeah.
And going, who are you? Like, what the hell happened to you? Because I've suffered from post-traumatic depression due to health issues and depression and anxiety. So I've been on medications for a while now, and I can tell the difference, which is really scary now, because I can tell the difference when I go from, I lost my medications for a while, for like a long weekend, and by the time I found them, I plummeted so hard. And Christian, my boyfriend, was noticing. He's like, we need to find those meds. You need to, because it went from, yeah, let's go act, let's go, to, I don't want to go anywhere. Yeah. Are you hungry? Yeah. Order in, because I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in bed. And did it happen for you, or how did it happen for you to notice your husband trying to help you? And I don't know if I felt like I was in a plastic box. They're trying to reach for you and you can't reach back. And then you get more frustrated and sad because now they're frustrated and sad. Did you go through any of that?
Absolutely. I remember probably my darkest day. I remember my husband coming home from work. He hadn't long started a new job, and I was in bed and I just couldn't get out of bed. The kids, and I don't even know how old the kids would have been. I can't remember. They were obviously still at school. Still at home with me. And, he came home and, he tried to contact me that day, and I couldn't get out of bed. I knew from a conscious point of view, you need to get up. Your kids are here with you. What are you doing? And I remember him coming home and he rang his boss and said, I need to be home with my wife, because I'd really hit my point, where I was helpless. I couldn't help myself. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't want to do it. And as a mum, it's so hard to feel like you can't provide for your own children and you can't get out of bed and do things. So again, it's just like this overwhelming cycle that goes on. You're in a bad way. So then your thoughts and everything, makes it even worse. And then, you're just like, well, get yourself out of it, because it's interesting, but like I said, I'd never suffered from depression, anxiety, earlier in my life. And, when I used to hear people that go through it, because I was always a very positive person, I was just like, well, why can't you just get yourself out of it? Just do something different. So it was really at that time that, probably because I had that thought about people that went through it, I was like, come on, just get out of it. But you just can't. You're so consumed. And those moments where you go so low that you just like, how am I going to get out? And for a lot of that, from that moment, that's probably, like I said, the hardest and darkest point was, me not being able to get out of bed. But, I don't even know what kind of started to change. I know things didn't get massively better. For me, that was really when I started to, seek out something to help me. And what that was at the time was drugs. The drugs made me feel like I had some kind of feelings, because I'd been so numb, so much like a robot, just went through the everyday motions of life without feeling anything. So that for me, that's when I reached out to the drugs to actually try to help me feel something that I couldn't feel myself. So that's, when I started to feel better and more, more myself. But then the drugs would wear off and you'd be back to where you were, if not lower than that.
Mm.
So it's very much a vicious circle at that point of just trying to get by. And that's what I used to help me to try to live.
Why do you think, because from what I'm listening, it just seemed that it would seem, and you correct me please, it would seem that one of the things that's not like the other was the mom part. Like everything else would have had its place, but when you became a mom, it became like the rock that like kind of held everything down, and not in a positive way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was like, because I was a mum, I had to create a whole new identity. It's like I had to leave behind everything that I used to know because I was a mum now. It's really, again, it's like, well, why did I do that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm a mum now, but I'm still Jamie. And I think that's my biggest thing now is that, yes, I am a mum. Yes, I am a wife, but, I'm so much more connected with who I am, probably more than ever in my life. And I think that the attachment that I had before I had children to my career was how I saw my identity. So it's kind of like going through identity crisis. I was a career-driven, motivated woman, and then I'm a mum now, so I lost the identity of the career-driven, motivated person that I was, and then I jumped into the identity of becoming a mum. So then I, had all these expectations of what being a mum felt like or what it would look like. So then that became my new identity. But what I've since learned after all this time is that, I'm myself and they're just labels,
Right.
they're just, titles that I might give myself, but it actually doesn't make me who I am. And it's interesting having gone through, like I said, I guess like identity crisis of, pre-mum, becoming a mum and thinking that this is how I had to be, but now actually truly knowing who I am. So, it's been a beautiful gift for me to get to this point. But yeah, attaching myself to a title of what I'm supposed to be and living up to an expectation of things that probably aren't even realistic, is where it can be really difficult because you're never going to live up to that expectation.
So this is a great segue to go from, we've already hit the rock bottom, so let's bring you back up because the conversation, how do you become, from that point, how do you go to being a life coach and now helping other people?
Yeah, so my breakthrough moment, so we mentioned before about this, moment in the window. So what I was, so as a person suffering from depression, addiction, all those kind of things, I cut myself off from my whole life. So I didn't really leave the house. I just lived in my box. And I recently connected with a girl I used to go to school with. I graduated from school many, many years ago. And, we just started talking kind of like on a spirituality kind of, way and, where I was in my life and, what was going on for me. And I don't know, it was like she was the one person that I could confide into about a whole nother world that I hadn't really explored before. And, she said, oh, listen, there's a friend of mine's running this parenting workshop if you'd like to come. And I was like, fantastic, because I thought I was a shit mom and, I had a lot of guilt. So I was like, yep, I'll come along. And I went to this meeting and there was a room of about 40, 50 people, except for the one person that I knew. So the rest were complete strangers, listened to the workshop, and right at the end we got asked to write a I'm sorry letter. And, sorry to our children. And
Oh, wow.
At that moment, what flowed out of me, like my hand could not keep up with my pen. What came out of me was I just started to release this massive amount of guilt. So, a lot of what we've talked about of, me thinking that I was doing the right thing by, being a stay-at-home mum, but it probably wasn't the right thing for me to have done and, all these kind of things. And what flowed out of me was just, it literally started to break down my walls. I call it my breakthrough moment, my light bulb moment. I felt like this light within me started to actually shine. I actually got up in front of the group and I shared my letter. It was one of those moments where it was like, I was there, but I wasn't there. This was just something outside of myself. It was like literally, a moment that I just needed to have, and I didn't know that I was going there to have that, and it's interesting, but because I put myself out of my comfort zone, being my dark hole at home, and went to this is what kind of happened. And from that moment forward, it was like I felt like I was worthy of something more, that my life up until this point had gotten to me where I was, but there was a way bigger thing than this. So at that moment when I felt worthy, I was like, you know what? I need to take some time for myself. I need to find out what lights me up. And so I just went on this massive, self-discovery journey, if you want to call it that, and just, learning more about myself, more than I'd ever found out about in my whole entire life. And at that point, there was massive changes in my life. My husband and I temporarily separated, moved house, just so many different things. I started to hang out with different people that, I felt safe and not judged by. And, so that's when my whole world just started to change. And the more that I discovered what lit me up, the more I was like, oh my God, like there's been so much purpose in the pain that I've experienced. I've gone through depression, anxiety, and addiction, and, there's so many gifts here I have to share with others. And so within finding myself, I found out more of why I'm actually here. And, so now I share those gifts and those blessings that I've had, myself, with others, and know that I can hold space for others because I know what it's like to go through those things, and really accepting myself for everything I've been through. And I say it's, owning my story. It's probably one of the most powerful things I did, that I took responsibility for everything that had happened in my life, and was no longer the victim of my life. Like I felt like I'd been held prisoner by my depression, anxiety, addiction, and now all of a sudden I felt free. Like I was like, wow, this is my life, and we all create our lives every single day, and this is the thing. And, at the time when we go through things that are so dark or so difficult, it's very much victim. It's like, oh my God, this is happening to me, and, how am I going to get out of it? But when you start to empower yourself to go, we create our life every single day.
Right.
And I remember this particular day, and I was like, there's so much, like, I was wanting to change, but it was like the universe was just throwing me all these challenges. Like, are you testing? We're really going to test you here. Like, and I was kind of still in fear. And then I was like, I'm waking up every day waiting for something bad to happen. I was creating this fear. So I was like, if I'm creating this fear, well, I don't want to create this fear anymore. I want to create something else. And that's really was a pivotal moment where I was just like, I don't need to create this anymore. So then it was just exponential, just change and just growth, and just getting more and more aligned with, with my path. So, that's really why it's allowed me to now hold this space for others and help others, because, I'm no different to anyone else. If I can do it, like anyone can do it. But again, I talked about before, like people need to be ready for change.
Right.
So, if people are open and ready for change, listening to this or whatever, it's like, reach out, because, I know what it's like to go through those things. It's not like I just read it in a manual. I'm not a, trained psychologist or counselor. I've done some NLP training and some Reiki training and, things like that, alternative, I guess, kind of approaches to, implementing change. But, I just love how I've turned my pain into a purpose.
That's pretty cool. I think that's, again, I as I read the book, and everybody's chapter, I've been reading everybody's chapter before they come on, so it's fresh in my head.
Yeah.
And I resonated with just about everything I've read so far. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's, and this is just a teaser for those of you listening, because my listeners, know most of my story, but every chapter I've read so far, I'm like, oh my God, that's changed the name. And there I am. Because I going through health issues, AIDS when I was 30, and becoming an activist and an advocate, and then going to rehab when I was 36, and becoming a recovering alcoholic and addict. So that was another title. and then cancer 2 years ago, so at 45. Excuse me, now I'm a cancer survivor and be an advocate for that. And all these titles, so Daniel advocate for, so where you're like Jaime mom, Jaime daughter, I'm like advocate for this, talker for this, like I have a podcast for that, I have a show for this. And then somewhere along the line, I got lost and had to discover myself. And I felt where you was your family, for me, was feeling guilty that I was leaving all these people that listened to me or heard my message behind and going, I'm still here. Mommy just needs a vacation for a little while. Just don't ask me about anything for a little bit. So I can relate to that. And I think a lot of people, not just moms, I think a lot of people feel that again. I know some dads who work at a job only for the money and the benefits, and they hate their lives, but they feel like they have to continue doing it because how are their family going to survive? What are they going to do? And they never follow their passions. They never get to do that. Wow. So how do you come together with this group to write this book? How, do you approach them? Did they approach you?
Yeah, I'd actually been interviewed via podcast by one of the ladies that was co-authoring the book, who had made connections. Really, I call it literally the universe aligning to be exactly the right time and the right place. So I connected with Kim, quite some months early. We just so happened to, be on the same kind of, I think it was like a manifesting challenge or something like that. So we kind of connected because obviously she's in America and I'm here in Australia, and we just connected. We were very similar people, and although we didn't really know each other's story at that time, there was just an inner knowing with the two of us that was really beautiful. And so she interviewed me on her podcast, so she knew a lot more about my story, and she continued to obviously interview other people, and she then connected with Calvin, so the gentleman that's the publisher and co-author of the book as well. And she reached out and she said, we're looking to bring this book together of all these positive stories of overcoming adversity. Like, I think your story is really powerful. Would you be happy to share? And at that point I was like, wow, because I'd actually written on my vision board that I wanted to write my own book. So for me, this was like a beautiful introduction to the process of writing a book, the process of, starting to share my story. So that's really how it happened, because all the co-authors are all in America. I'm the only Australian. So I just, like I said, call it divine intervention of just, we need you to be a part of this book. And the beautiful advantage in co-authoring this book and it being such a powerful book in regards to people sharing their stories of adversity is, we've just bonded as this group of, and again, I know parts of people's story because, we've had our promotional work and stuff like that, but, I think it's just the courage or the strength for people to share their stories publicly, and for myself to share my story publicly, like, it's massive. And, but having gone through what I've gone through, I feel like I need to pay it forward. I feel like others need to read the book, my chapter, whatever resonates, because, there's power in people sharing my stories. I'm so passionate about, people sharing stories. As a young girl, I was 18, I started working in hospitality, started working in bars and stuff. And no matter who I came across, I've worked in front bars, in all areas. It's like, no matter who I came across, no matter their social, class or whatever, everyone's got such an amazing, powerful story. And it frees people by knowing that they're normal, that it's okay that they go through these things in their lives, and it's okay for, people to think like this or act like this or do things that, society might say, well, no, you shouldn't do that. It kind of brings back an element of normal humanity that, people go through these things in their life. So, this book has just been an incredible experience to go through with the other co-authors. I'm really excited to, write my book, which eventually will come out one day. But at this point, the energy and just the, collaboration of coming together with everyone and sharing and being vulnerable, has been the absolute highlight for me so far. And the book, the book is, soon to come out.
So these chapters are based on true stories of each of the authors.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
Obviously, when that happened to you, there was a lesson learned at the time.
Yep.
Now, years later, that you write it down, what new lessons did you learn from the story?
To really heighten stepping into my truth. I'm a big, I talk about and I run workshops and, retreats and stuff with Free to Be Me. And like I said, it's one thing, a lot of people know my story, but when you write it in a book, it's like the whole world can read it, so it's like you're allowing, the story to come out to some people, but not everybody. So for me, my biggest lesson really has been just standing in my truth and continuing to accept myself, for all that I've done, and all that I am. So that's been really powerful for me because I know deep in my heart this book really isn't for me anymore. This book is actually for whoever needs to pick up and read my story or, the co-author's story.
Right.
And it's scary. There's still an element of, how's it going to be received? But I'm so, I just know deep in my heart that, there's a bigger calling than me being open to share my story.
Well, I think it's really amazing. As I was mentioning in one of the other interviews, some of us write, some of us blog, some of us podcast, but there's this vulnerability that you have to be okay with in telling your story and allowing other folks to listen to it and not be concerned with being judged. Because if you start worrying about or putting too much attention or too much energy into being judged, you don't tell the honest story. You tell a version that will make you look better or more like a victim. Or did that happen for you, and how did you overcome it?
Definitely. And I think that it's taken me, the last few months, I guess going through the process of writing my chapter, and I've only recently kind of done some edits. It sat the story for quite a while, and there was still an element of me that probably wasn't accepting all of it. And, when I finally did my final edit, my final draft and sent it off, there was like this beautiful feeling of peace because I really opened myself right up. And, knowing, like I said, yes, I'm sure I'll benefit from it, but benefit doesn't seem like the right word. Like I'm sure it'll help, strengthen my growth. But I just feel like there's a much bigger reason why that I've done it for somebody else. So yeah, I love that in the end that I shared it all.
That's pretty awesome. So we're getting to the point of our show where traditionally my guest will send out some words of wisdom to my listeners. Jaime Aplin, what words of wisdom do you have?
Mm-hmm. My words of wisdom are just stay true to you. It's your life. Don't live up to expectations you put on yourself, or secondly, expectations that you think you need to live up to for others. Because for me, and most of the part of my journey was by not staying true to me, I completely lost my way. I felt like I had to be this and that, and I was living everything other than what I really wanted because I thought it was the right thing to do. So for me now, my truth and, staying true to me is, as I said earlier, how do you put yourself together? It's because, I do what feels right for me in my heart. And sometimes we need to decipher between what's, true to our heart and what's, in our mind, because our mind's really good at, telling us things that we should be doing when really, if it doesn't align with what our heart feels. And I think that's the space that I lived in. I lived in my head and I had no connection with, my heart, which is essentially the essence of who you are. So for me, staying true to you, follow your heart. We only live one life. We never know what's going to happen. There's been lots of circumstances around me lately where you just remind yourself of the gift that is life. So to live that life, whether you live to a ripe old age or, whatever, life is here to be, lived. And I just, lived an existence for so long and, I'm not sad that it happened. I'm very grateful for what happened because, now at the age of, 30, how old am I? 35. I have so much of my life to live, being fulfilled, and I live a very fulfilled life now because I stay true to me. And the most interesting part of it all when, where I started to go, okay, being selfless and sacrificing for my family and, all those I loved got me into a whole world of pain that, now I'm selfish in the term of I look after myself first. Because if I can't look after myself first, I don't have anything to give. And that for me has dramatically changed my life. From a conscious point, you're just like, oh, but putting yourself first, how's that going to work out for everyone else? But it does. Like, it's this beautiful, my husband and I got back together, the relationship I have with my girls now, what I'm doing as my, as my purpose and doing as my, fulfillment in my life. I did that. That was beautifully born from me making time for myself.
Mm.
So, stay true to you. What do you want in your life? Because in fact, your life will be even more amazing around you because it just falls into place.
Cool.
So that's my words of wisdom.
So from what I'm hearing, we do have a happy ending. You and your husband are back together.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Because that was still in my head. I'm like, she hasn't said anything.
Yes.
This is like a little mini soap opera. I want to know where it ends. Like what happened?
Absolutely. Yes.
So if I can tell, we still have about 15 minutes to go, but there are tons of people, and again, I don't want to make this feminine or masculine. There are tons of people out there who do sacrifice, who do compromise more than they should.
Yep.
And to the point where you start resenting your family, you start resenting your job, your life, the sun, the moon, everything is getting in the way of you being happy. So, I know that we can't define this into just one step, but for somebody listening out there and they're like, what can I do to just take that first step? What would you suggest they do?
A big part of, what got me to that workshop that I talked about earlier was there's people in your life that are little messengers. Whether it's an old friend you've reconnected with or a new person you've just met, there's a reason why those people have come into your life. And I'm a big believer that there's so many messengers here to help you and guide you on your way. But when you're in your box and in your, in your darkness, you can't feel or see those messengers. So my advice would be, if you've got this inner knowing of like I said, I hadn't been out, I hadn't done anything for myself for such a long time. Like, why did I end up at this parenting workshop? And for me, it was like, there was something within me that just went, you just need to go, Jamie. So, for me, start to try to listen to your heart or your intuition or your gut, like what feels right for you, and start to, step out of your head. So, maybe that there's no coincidence in life. There's so many things that just happen and they all happen for a reason. Maybe just really start to open up your eyes and your ears and your heart to, is someone trying to give me a message about something, somewhere that I need to be or something that I need to do, or, and so I think that it is just being more aware that you're trying to be helped, or not helped. someone's trying to guide you. Someone, like, there's things out there that are trying to align you with where you need to go. So my advice would be to open yourself up to being aware of that potentially more. But also, like, I made a resolved decision that it was time for me to change. So I think that, you don't need to know the details of how it's going to happen, but just to make a decision. Like, I'm ready to change. And then all of a sudden, like, things just happen around you and it just happens. So you don't need to know the details, but just be willing and open to change. So yeah, so mine would be open to things going on around you or people that you've connected with. And secondly, that, just be open to change. And are you ready to change? Because I think until you're actually at the point where you're ready to change, like, nothing will actually change. So yeah, that would be my advice.
You mentioned earlier in the episode that you don't like titles. And I think a lot of people, I've overgrown titles. I'm like, I'm just Daniel, like, it's Daniel Garza, period.
Yep.
Like, cause it's just so much. But here's a little game for you. But if you could define yourself in a certain way, what would that be?
That I'm free to be me.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I run. Like I said, my workshops on, many things I do, because that's honestly how I feel now. I feel free to be me. So that's, if you want to put it as a title.
Yes. Did you see me writing that down?
Yeah, I did. I just love it. It just resonates. It feels so right. It feels amazing. And to come all this way and to say that, yeah, I love it.
So let's travel back in time a little bit to Jaime right before she got married. And you're giving her some words of wisdom before she walks down the aisle. What would you tell her?
Don't sacrifice yourself for someone that you think you need to be, or like, to live a life. I guess I go back to it, to be true to you. That no matter what you become in regards to, whether it's a career profession or, a mum or whatever the case may be, like, it doesn't define who you are. You're still yourself under that. But if you get so caught up in attaching yourself to that identity, then you'll probably never live a fulfilled life, because you're living up to an expectation of something that's probably not even realistic. So I guess it's kind of, going over again what I've talked about, but, it's, like, looking back now, like, I had no idea that's what it was, that I had a, identity with this and an identity, like, like having multiple identities at once, like, it's a tough gift to have. So, really just none of that makes you who you are. You are who you are. And that's kind of irrelevant, really. Yeah.
You can't hide the truth forever. And I think that's what we do sometimes. We try to hide our truth, and because we want to fit in, we want the house with the picket fence and the 2.3 kids and the dog in the yard. And even as a gay man, I still have that belief, like, I'm going to have that. I'm going to have that. And then as things don't start working out, I feel like I haven't accomplished my purpose.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And I turn my back on my real purpose, because obviously the universe, God, have some other plan for me. And I'm like, no. Yeah. Tradition says this is what I should do. And then God tells me, but Daniel, you're not traditional. So stop trying to live that. Let me show you. And then when I finally decided, like, after cancer, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do what I want. Financially secure or not, I'm going to do it. And eventually at the end of the road, the gifts will come to me. And surprisingly enough, they have. And I'll include this series of interviews with you guys a total gift because I just kind of threw it out there and I was like, hey, why don't you? And I was like, okay, you got the first, you get the first one of the first interviews. So, and to get all 9 of you, that's pretty cool. I'm like, that's
absolutely.
Ka-ching.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And that's the thing, things like this, and like, I talk about like my book and, there's been so many, opportunities come up or things come up in my life that, just never would have happened if I wasn't aligned with who I am. And that's the best part. The more that you understand who you are and live a life of congruency and, of truth, like, it's like a magnet. Like, it's like the universe goes, you know what? She's being herself. So we're actually going to support her by her aligning with who she is. And we're going to give her everything that she needs for that. Yeah. And for me now with my girls, like, I went for I'll tell you a quick story if that's okay. But, yeah. It's actually September, so I'm raising money for kids with cerebral palsy for this month, and so we're like nearly a week in, and so I took my daughter up to my favourite place. So there's a place 5 minutes from my home, which is in the hills, gorgeous waterfalls, just stunning. And I walk there quite often, and I've taken the kids up there a little bit. I mean, they're only little, they only got little legs, and we usually go to the first waterfall, which is pretty kind of like general, nice, soft walk for them. And I said to my daughter, on the weekend, I was like, let's go for a walk up to the second waterfall. And it's steep, like it's massive. Like the view from the top of the waterfall is just magnificent. So she's like, yep, Mum, we're going to do it. So, we're going to take our 10,000 steps per day. And, we went up there yesterday and she just trooped on. She just kept going and going. And yeah, she got tired and, we ended up, I think she did about 15,000 steps yesterday, which is massive for a little 6-year-old. But, just to watch her mindset, her determination, her strength, even though she's got labeled with a disability, it doesn't hold her back. And, we did this video, afterwards and, none of my videos are rehearsed. All my videos just flow with what they need to. And I said to Ella, like, what would be your advice for people? And she said, bless her heart, it nearly makes me tear up now. She's like, even if you fall down, you can still do it. And I was like, cause, her disability causes her to trip over a lot and, she's got the hardest head I know. She's had many falls, bless her heart. And that was her advice. Even though you fall down, you can still get up and you can do it. And I was like, where does that come from? Like our kids, pick up so much more of what we do rather than what we say. And for me now, having 2 young girls, and living a life true to me, they're reaping the benefits more than what I could ever have actually taught them any other way than being myself. So when she said that yesterday, I went, wow, like that is so powerful. A, for someone to hear from a 6-year-old, and secondly from a mum, like from me going, like that's her perception of life. Like how amazing is that? So, there's her words of inspiration and advice, and I think it's just amazing because no matter how many times you do fall down, you can get up, you can get up again and do whatever you want to do. So, yeah.
Well, first, it sounds like I should have her on my show.
You should.
Talk about putting it together. That's a put it together story right there. And Absolutely. It kind of warmed my heart. I mean, because one of my last questions was going to be, how do you think you've impacted your daughters? Bah, there's the answer. There's the answer to that. That's pretty amazing. Oh, man. Yes. You gave me chills and gave me a little lump in my throat.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, anyway. Deep breath. So tell folks, how can they find you? Where can they find you? Information about the book, everything you can give out.
Beautiful. So for myself, so my website is Jaime Aplin, so Jaime aplin.com. So that's my website. It's got a link to some of my events. I'm running some online challenges at the moment. Got an upcoming retreat. So I did a retreat a few weeks ago. Got a new one coming out in February, here in Adelaide. So yeah, website's got some information. Please connect with me on Facebook. So same details, Jaime Aplin. Yeah, I do a lot of videos. Like I just share a lot of my experiences of what I'm still going through in regards to my growth, and I've become a bit of a messenger for people, so I tend to share that a lot on my Facebook page as well. But yeah, like I said, I do one-on-one coaching, so yeah, love for you to reach out and just say, hey, I heard your podcast, just want to say hi. I'm a real people person. I'm a social butterfly now, I kind of was earlier in my life, until I went through my darkness, but, I love connecting with people, hearing people's stories. It always goes two ways. So, you share a message, it's like, what you shared with me about your story today. There's always a part that resonates with you, yourself, and it kind of gives you a little message for the day. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. So, the book, we've got our website, Positive Minded People Book, our Facebook page, our Instagram. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out with the book. Can't wait for people to read it, because that takes on a whole nother level for me. Like, it's one thing for me to have sat here and wrote the chapter, and likewise with the other co-authors, but when it's kind of unleashed into the universe, I can't wait to see what comes out of that for people. So please reach out, connect with myself, connect with the co-authors in the book. Very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, to the audience, I got a chance to peek at the book, early. So I'm really excited. Now I'm waiting now for volume 2 to come out.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then somewhere along the line, there has to be a Spanish version of it. Hello. just saying. If you know anybody who speaks Spanish, hello. That's going to be on my vision board. I just hit the last thing on my vision board. I've had it for 5 years.
Wow.
And I finally hit the last thing on it. So I'm ready for a new vision board. And, that's going on mine to be part of a group like you guys. Cause I've seen the pictures. Y'all look like you had so much fun. I was a little jealous, but,
it was incredible. Yeah.
But I look forward to, you visiting California again, and
it was amazing. It was my first time really overseas. My husband and I went on a cruise to the South Pacific for our honeymoon, but we've never travelled overseas. So that was my first long flight. I spent 6 days in LA.
Nice.
Loved the summer because it was warm. So I left the cold, rainy in Australia and went over. And yeah, saw Santa Monica, went up in the hills, saw some amazing things in America. So my next thing on my vision board is to take the kids to Disneyland. So just putting it out there, universe. Looking forward to coming back to America anytime soon with the family. So whatever opportunities you'd like to arise, that'd be awesome.
And I live 25 minutes from Disneyland. So if you're there, I'd have to come and visit you and meet the daughters of yours. That would be
absolutely, definitely.
All right, so don't go away. Let me say goodbye to these folks. Guys, I hope you've had as much fun listening to this conversation as I have. Jaime Aplin, part of the Positive Minded People book, coming out in October. You'll have information all over the Facebook pages, so come visit us. For now, I just want to thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Warriors, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Want to invite all of y'all to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find information on all the shows on the network. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Little Mexican, LILMESICAN, or at littlemexicanproductions.com. It's under construction, so come visit and see what's new on there. Please visit Put It Together page on Facebook, and Little Mexican Productions also on Facebook, and send us a message. If you want to be on the show, easy. Send me a message on any of those links, or email me at danielggarza@hotmail.com. DanielGgarza@hotmail.com. Put podcast on the subject so I don't delete it and I have you on the show. Jaime, thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate it so much. We can go on talking for a while, but I know it's early in Monday. You want to get your day started. So, for Daniel Garza, this is, hey, put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.